So, and everybody knows it, and they know it. You know, the one thing they don't want to talk about is the election. They don't want to talk because they're guilty as hell. They
That's
cheated
the
like
only
hell.
thing you want to
They
talk
know it,
about.
and you'll never find out all the ways. But we don't need all the ways because you know it was
How
I
about
think
one way?
22,000 votes
How about, how about
separated,
you give us
and we
one
have
way?
millions and millions of votes. It's a very sad thing. So the most important part of what's coming up is to guard the vote. And you should go into
What does guard the
Detroit, and
vote
you should
mean?
go into Philadelphia, and you should go into some of these places, Atlanta, and you should go into some of
Atlanta.
these places, and we.
You want to mention DC? You want to go with South Central? You sure you don't need to guard the vote in Vermont? How come you don't need to guard the vote in Utah? That's interesting. Detroit, Atlanta.
We got to watch
Okay.
those votes when they come in, when
Hmm.
they're being,
Wonder what
shoved
guard the vote
around in
means.
wheelbarrows and dumped on the floor, and everyone's saying, "What's going on?" We're like a third world nation, and we can't let it happen. So,
How do you do this? Where do you draw your strength from? We're talking about faith. How do you do this every day? How do you get up and fight for every single one of us?
it's probably the biggest question I get.
When they went to him, I thought she was going to ask how you get up and fight with that rat's nest on your head. But all right, let me.
You draw your strength from. We're talking about faith. How do you do this?
How do you draw the strength? How do you draw the fight to get up day after day after you look in the mirror? How do you do it?
Every day. How do you get up and fight for every single one of us?
It's probably the biggest question I get. The second biggest would be they're not going to be allowed to do it again. Okay, you know what that means. Okay, that's number two. But number one is, how do you do it? One of the reasons is that I have the highest poll numbers people have virtually ever.
She was setting you up to lie about your faith. That's the only reason she asked that question, was to set you up to lie about your faith. She spoon-fed you like Chris Paul in his prime to lie about your faith, and you couldn't even do that. How is it that you find the faith and the strength to get up day after day? Well, these poll numbers, they give me everything I need down bottom.
Every single one of us.
It's probably the biggest question I get. The second biggest would be they're not going to be allowed to do it again. Okay, you know what that means. Okay, that's number two. But number one is, how do you do it? One of the reasons is that I have the highest poll numbers people have virtually ever seen. You beat.
You literally worship praise. You worship praise. I bet you put poll numbers up on an altar and you be burning incense, and that's the only time you get down on your knees, unless you believe some of those Russian dossiers.
Beating these people by 60 points, and we're beating Biden by a lot. Does anybody want to hear the snake?
No.
What the snake is? Do you want
Ain't
it?
that how you got in trouble?
Does anybody know what the snake is? It's something. It was a song written many years ago, and changed it around a little bit. Should I say it or not? I don't know. But we've been waging an all-out war in American democracy. You look at what they've been doing, and but we've been waging an all-out war in American democracy. You look at what they've been doing.
That sounds right.
And did you see where a very respected representative of Black Lives Matter, New England territory, right? New England, endorsed Trump, he said.
What makes him very well respected? Must be that he endorsed you. Oh, well, this is awkward. This looks like Black Lives Matter disavowing any connection to that gentleman, but it was a nice
trust the American people to draw their own conclusions. They should not be dictated by some narrative and accept that as fact. So they can review the tapes themselves. We're going through a methodical process of releasing them as quickly as we can. As you know, we have to blur some of the faces of persons who participated in the events of that day, because we don't want them to be retaliated against. And
I got it. So you got to blur people's faces that were participating in what you call a peaceful demonstration, because you don't want them to be retaliated against by potential prosecution for engaging in what you're saying was a peaceful demonstration. Yeah, that's not mathing, dog. That ain't mathing, dog.
to be charged by the DOJ. And
okay, we're gonna call it peaceful, but we can't let you have their identities for them not. We can't let you have the identities of people out here not committing crimes
and to have other concerns and problems. So That's a
You
slow
told on
process to get it
yourself.
done.
You
We're
told on
working
yourself, dog.
steadily on it. We've hired additional personnel to do that. And all of those tapes, ultimately, at the end, will be out so everybody can see them and draw their own conclusions.
Everybody can draw their own
Do
conclusion.
you have a problem with systemic bigotry against Catholics in the FBI?
Hey, you got
No.
something in your lip, man. You got.
Do you have a problem with systemic bigotry against Catholics in the FBI?
Yeah, it's still there.
No.
It's still there.
When I hear Donald Trump say, don't call him a fat pig, he's not a fat pig. Please do not call him a fat pig. And says in response to,
Why they gonna
Christie
do that, man,
question,
like that?
That is off bounds. Don't call him a fat pig.
Why?
Extremely disrespectful.
How many times? How many times you gonna say that? How many times are you gonna say that to the man's face? Chris Christie did nothing to deserve you continuing to repeat Donald Trump saying, "Don't call him a fat pig" to his face on live television. Come on.
I actually went to the trouble, Governor, of counting up the number of times he has done this. It's in the dozens.
Yeah.
Now, as someone who I would say I don't like to use those terms, calorically challenged. How do you deal with that? Because he's extended this.
I don't like to use those terms. I'm just going to repeat what Trump said over and over and over again to your face.
Haley calling her bird brain.
Look, as far as I can't speak as to Nikki, but let me say this. Nikki Haley's not a bird brain. Like, please. She's an intelligent woman. She's a really good two-term governor of South Carolina, and I like her personally. She's a good person, and she shouldn't be subjected to that, nor should anybody.
But what does your family say about this? I mean,
They hate it.
Yeah.
Sure. My children hate it, especially because we've been friends with Donald Trump for over 20 years. My children have socialized with him.
Wait, you've been friends with this dude?
Christie question. That is off bounds. Don't call him a fat pig because it's extremely disrespectful. I actually went to the trouble. Others
You've been
did
friends
back
with
in
that dude?
2016 and realized it's a waste of time. Don't go there. Don't go on that level.
You know, look, I can't ever guarantee you what I'll do if I'm face to face with him, because you know this.
Fight back!
Guys from
Fight
New Jersey
back,
have been
Chris
used to dealing with
Christie!
obnoxious guys from New York for a long time. So if we were one-on-one, I don't know exactly what would happen, but what I want to do is spend my time telling people that you don't want a person like this in the White House. And at the end of the day, for him,
Fight back,
I've said
Chris
this in
Christie.
return.
Fight back, Chris Christie!
Like, who's he? Hercules? I mean, we've seen the pictures on the golf course. I mean, I'm not going to call him the same things, but we're not talking about an Adonis over here in Donald
All of the
Trump.
same thing.
No, I don't think those horrible things. Because guess what? And I know you and I agree on this. That to have people use that, it is the one discrimination in this snowflake world we live in that's still allowed. Some